There's a moment in sports that stops time. Not the kind manufactured for cameras or replayed in slow motion by broadcast teams. The kind that catches even the people in the room completely off guard. When Roger Federer stepped forward and placed a golden racket into Alex's hands, she didn't smile for the crowd. She cried. And for a few seconds, nobody in that room made a sound. That moment didn't come from nowhere. To understand why it hit the way it did, you have to rewind to Miami, March 2025. Hard Rock Stadium was packed with the kind of names that dominate tennis year after year. Iga Swiatek, world number 2, 5-time Grand Slam champion, the kind of player who walks onto a court and the whole atmosphere shifts. Madison Keys, fresh off winning the Australian Open. Jelena Ostapenko, ferocious and unpredictable, a French Open champion who had been a problem for elite players for nearly a decade. These weren't just good players. They were landmarks. And then there was Alex. 19 years old. Ranked 140 in the world. In the draw on a wild card, meaning she didn't earn her spot through points. She was handed an opportunity. Most people in the media didn't give her a second glance. She was easy to overlook, easy to skip past in the draw bracket, easy to forget entirely. She noticed. She always does. Alex's story doesn't start in Miami. It starts much earlier, in a household where sport wasn't just entertainment, it was identity. She fell in love with tennis young, the way kids fall in love with things that feel like destiny before they are old enough to understand the cost of chasing it. At 12 years old, she left home. Not for a nearby academy or a regional training program, she moved to Spain to train at the Rafael Nadal Academy. 12. Think about what that actually means. A new language. A new culture. New teammates who were already building the kind of intensity that separates serious athletes from everyone else. She packed up her childhood and crossed the world on a belief that she hadn't yet had the chance to prove. That doesn't happen without something burning inside you. At the academy, she was pushed hard and shaped into a competitor. She picked up junior Grand Slam titles, worked the ITF circuit, grinded through challenger events, lost matches that mattered and came back the next week and played again. The spotlight rarely found her. That was fine. She kept going anyway, quietly, stubbornly, completely sure that her moment was out there somewhere ahead of her. By 2024, she had climbed to a career-high ranking of 143. In the Philippines, she was already something more than a tennis player. She was a symbol, her country's long-term investment in a sport still fighting for real mainstream attention there. People believed in her before the rest of the world had any reason to. Then the 2025 Miami Open happened, and everything changed in the span of a single week. She won her first match. Then her second. Then her third. When she drew Jelena Ostapenko, a player who hits the ball with the kind of velocity that rattles opponents before the rally even starts, Alex didn't wilt. She won. The tennis world started paying attention. Then she beat Madison Keys, the reigning Australian Open champion. And disbelief quietly replaced surprise. Then she took down Iga Swiatek, the world number 2, a 5-time Grand Slam champion, beaten by a wild card ranked 140th. For a moment, the internet just stopped. Then it exploded. Highlights were everywhere. Filipino fans celebrated in the streets. Journalists who hadn't mentioned her name a week earlier were now rushing to explain her, profile her, place her in historical context. The irony was sharp and familiar. Nobody talks about you until you make them, and then everyone acts like they were paying attention all along. Alex reflected on it later with a kind of quiet wonder. She called it surreal. The highlight of her career. The moment that put her on the map. Even she struggled to fully believe it had happened. Her run ended in the semifinals, a tough 3-set loss to Jessica Pegula. But by then, it didn't matter. The story had already been written. And from somewhere in the tennis world, Roger Federer was watching. When Federer speaks publicly about the sport, people stop. Not out of nostalgia, though that's there too, but because 20 Grand Slam titles and 2 decades of sustained brilliance at the absolute top of the game earn a kind of permanent credibility. His farewell in September 2022 left stadiums in tears around the world. His voice still carries weight. He used it for Alex. 8 words. That's all he wrote. She is the future of world tennis. No qualifiers. No caveats. No lengthy explanation to soften the declaration. Just those 8 words, aimed directly at a 20-year-old from the Philippines who had just rewritten the Miami Open draw. The quote spread instantly. Tennis platforms. Filipino front pages. Sports broadcasts across Asia. Former players analyzed it. Current stars were asked about it in press conferences. Even casual observers understood that something significant had just been said, because when Federer attaches his name to a moment, it doesn't fade quickly. But what most people didn't know was that this wasn't the end of his involvement. It was the beginning. In the weeks after Miami, word emerged that Federer had reached out through his team, not for a photo opportunity, not for any kind of brand alignment, but to offer real mentorship. To talk seriously about what Alex's next chapter could look like and how he could help shape it. For a player who had grown up watching Federer turn tennis into something resembling poetry, less a contest, more a precise and beautiful exchange, the outreach felt almost impossible. The man who inspired her was now calling her the future and offering to help get her there. The tennis world buzzed. Federer mentoring a rising female star wasn't just a personal gesture. It suggested something larger, that the man who defined one era was actively choosing to invest in the next. And he had chosen Alex as his starting point. What nobody knew yet was that he was also preparing something tangible. Something that would bring her to tears in front of a room full of stunned witnesses. During a private event tied to Lava Cup preparations in late 2025, Federer presented Alex with a racket. Not a standard frame. Not a ceremonial prop handed out for cameras. This was custom crafted, finished in gold, engraved with the year of her breakthrough, and inscribed with a personal message written by Federer himself. People who were in the room that day described it as one of the most intentional gifts they had ever witnessed in any sporting setting. Without a single direct statement, Federer was saying everything. I see you. I believe in you. Carry this forward. Alex's reaction was immediate and completely unfiltered. No practiced composure, no athlete's careful public face. She cried, real, full tears, the kind that come from years of early mornings, lonely hotel rooms, small tournaments on courts that nobody filmed, quiet exits, and the long invisible grind that precedes recognition. In one gesture from a 20-time Grand Slam champion, all of that weight was finally, formally, acknowledged. Those present described the silence as almost sacred. Federer reportedly placed a hand on her shoulder and said softly, meant only for her, "You've already done the hard part. The rest is just tennis." The moment was captured on a single phone camera and shared online without any announcement, any strategy, any marketing plan. Just a raw clip, released into the world. And the world responded. The video spread the way only truly authentic things do, not because an algorithm pushed it, but because people felt something real watching it. Fans who had never followed women's tennis searched her name. Filipino communities around the globe shared it with a pride that went deeper than sport. Commentators called it the moment of the year. Former players posted emotional reactions, noting how her tears reflected something universal, the invisible weight every young athlete carries alone for years before anyone notices. Kim Clijsters, who had long expressed belief in Alex's potential, praised her blend of technical skill and rare emotional maturity. But beyond the tennis world, the image carried a different kind of meaning. A young Filipina athlete receiving a golden racket from one of the greatest players in history told a story that transcended sport entirely. Being overlooked. Working in silence. Believing without validation. And then finally hearing the most respected voice in your field say, "You belong here." That's a human story. That's why people who had never watched a WTA match in their lives watched that clip 3 times. What nobody tells you about a breakthrough is that it doesn't arrive alone. After the golden racket moment went viral, Alex wasn't just a promising young player building her resume anymore. She was a phenomenon. She was the headline. She was the future, publicly declared by Roger Federer in front of the entire tennis world. And with those 8 words came a pressure only people who've lived it truly understand. The conversation online shifted almost immediately. Supporters who had celebrated her freely began debating what she needed to accomplish next to justify Federer's faith. Analysts mapped out hypothetical Grand Slam timelines. Philippine media framed every upcoming tournament less as a normal tour stop and more as a test. Would she live up to it? Was she truly the future, or had Federer simply been generous in an emotional moment? To her enormous credit, Alex handled the weight with a composure that felt almost Federer-like in itself. In interviews following the moment, she didn't inflate it or downplay it. She said simply, "Tennis has given me a lot. It's very nice to know that I'm doing what I can for the sport." No drama. No manufactured humility. Just clarity. She acknowledged the moment, accepted the responsibility, and went back to work. Because she understood, instinctively, that belief given publicly is best honored through effort, not words. But carrying weight gracefully doesn't make it lighter. Early in the 2026 season, she met Coco Gauff in the quarterfinals of the Dubai Tennis Championships and lost 6-0, 6-2. The scoreline was stark, and the narrative machine immediately roared to life. Had Gauff exposed her? Was she a one-tournament wonder? What those reactions missed, as they always do, was context. On that day, Gauff was playing at a level that would have challenged anyone on tour. Alex had just come through a grueling Middle East swing, and she was now ranked 31st in the world, a staggering climb from 140th just a year earlier. In that same Dubai draw, she had defeated world number 7 Jasmine Paolini, which said far more about her legitimacy among the elite than one heavy loss did. One bad day is one data point. But when Federer has called you the future, every stumble becomes a referendum. After an early exit at the Qatar Open, cameras caught a quiet backstage moment. Alex embracing her parents, Mike and Reza, who had sacrificed alongside her from the beginning. It wasn't despair. It was something more layered, exhaustion mixed with gratitude, disappointment wrapped in resilience. The kind of embrace only people who have invested everything in a shared dream understand. She posted on Instagram shortly after, thanking those who continued to support her and the sport. The post drew more engagement than her match highlights. Because it revealed something beyond rankings, her humanity. The golden racket hadn't made her invincible. It had made her visible. And visibility carries its own kind of weight. There's something poetic about returning to the place where everything first changed. As March 2026 approached and the Miami Open drew near, Alex was coming back to the city where she had stunned 3 Grand Slam champions as an unknown wild card. Where Federer had called her the future. Where, by her own admission, everything first clicked into place. This time, she wasn't a footnote. She arrived as the number 31 player in the world, expected to make a deep run, defending 400 ranking points and carrying the weight of 12 months of scrutiny and expectation. But while the conversation around her focused on pressure and prophecy, she had been doing something quieter. She had been working. The discipline built into her at the Rafa Nadal Academy when she was 12 years old hadn't softened with viral fame. Under her coach Joan Bosch, her serve grew more assertive. Her decision-making from the baseline sharpened. Her composure against top 10 opponents became more seasoned, more certain. She had absorbed lessons from every loss, every difficult draw, every opponent who had exposed a weakness she later went and fixed. And somewhere among her belongings sat the golden racket. Not as a trophy to admire. As a reminder of the early mornings, the nearly empty junior tournaments in Europe, the homesickness, the long invisible grind that preceded recognition. When the greatest player in the history of your sport places belief in your hands, you don't ease up. You go deeper. Because the responsibility has grown. It's no longer just about personal ambition. It's about honoring faith. Carrying expectation with dignity. Proving that belief, when matched with relentless, unglamorous work, can complete a circle right back where it started. On a podcast recorded just weeks before her Miami return, Alex reflected on that defining 2025 run with characteristic honesty. "I look back at that moment," she said, "and I just think, wow. It was insane. It's crazy to believe that actually happened." Then, without pause, she grounded herself. "In the end, being on the WTA Tour is my dream. It's to be a professional tennis player. And I'm living out my dream." Notice that balance. She holds the miracle and the grind in the same breath. She doesn't let the wonder replace the work. She doesn't let the work diminish the wonder. That's exactly what Federer saw in her. Not just talent. Not just raw potential. A person who could shed real tears receiving a golden racket from her idol and still show up the next morning for 4 hours of hard practice because she understood deeply and completely that belief means nothing without the work that earns it. Alex's journey, from a wild card nobody was watching to the player Roger Federer trusted with 8 words and a golden racket, is proof of something worth holding on to. The climb matters more than the crown. Refusing to let silence define your worth can lead to moments that are both deeply human and genuinely historic.